Hey, it's Scott, ROCKFILE, back with another podcast review for you. Going to talk about the 2012 film Argo in its 4K edition. This is a movie I remember really enjoying, own it on Blu-ray, and never really thought about upgrading it. But again, as I've mentioned many times, HamiltonBook.com had a 4K edition for like $5, and I was like, well, how could I not? I, of course, looked up some reviews and made sure it was worthy of an upgrade, and it was. The short version is, this is based on a true story, and even though they openly say some things were dramatized for dramatic, well, you just can't take a real story and throw it up on the screen and not change a few things to make it entertaining, right? So they fully acknowledge that in the credits, and still, it's based on a true story. Most accounts that most of this happened. Anybody that came out afterwards and said, well, they got some things wrong, it was pretty minor things, like things were more complicated to get out and stuff like that. Well, of course, they're not going to show everything, but anyway. If you don't know the story, this is based on the true story of, there was a serious Iran hostage situation back in 79 to 81 that was, if you were alive at that time, you remember, it just would not go away. And during this, 6 of the members of this embassy got out and got down the street and stayed with the Canadian ambassador's family. And they stayed there for a year and a half, hiding, until they could come up with a way to get them out. How did they get them out? Well, they came up with an idea that they were a film crew working on scouting a science fiction movie they were going to make. And that's why the movie's called Argo. It sounds silly, but they really couldn't think of any other way to get these people out undercover. The entire country is under armed law, and even the airports, you're just not going to get anybody out as Americans. So they were already in a Canadian household. The thought processes where they got to this idea and how they executed it is amazing. The film did very, very well. It was made on a $45 million budget. It went on to make $232 million. It won all sorts of Golden Globes and Academy Awards and all sorts of stuff. So it made money. It was critically and commercially acclaimed. Best film stuff from British Film Awards, best screenplays. It won all sorts of stuff. You've got great roles from Ben Affleck, Bryan Cranston, Alan Arkin, John Goodman. So I put this in, having not watched it in over 10 years, and said, I really don't remember much. I mean, I remember the gist of the story. I was alive when these things actually happened. But watching it again, this is one of those movies, and I've said this before in previous podcasts, that this is a movie you could throw down with anybody. Holidays are coming up. Think about putting this one in, because everybody from kids to grandparents will get into this. Well, kids might be a little dry, but your grandmother will like this, and the teenagers in the family will like it too. It's an interesting story. It's well told. It's well filmed. It's exciting. It's interesting, and it keeps you invested for a full 2 hours. They could have overdone it. This could have been a 2.5 to 3 hour kind of miniseries kind of thing, but they didn't. They made a nearly action film that there's not a whole lot of action in, but they put you in the seats of these 6 people and how they get out of the embassy and how their lives are in danger and what happens. And there were other prisoners at that time, hostages, that this lasted from 79 to 1981. Go Google it if you weren't alive during that time to remember all this. But getting these 6 people out, they would have been killed. There was just no doubt if they ever had been discovered, they would have been shot or hung in the streets. So you have a basically fairly accurate historical drama thriller made very, very well. It's very exciting. And that it's based on a true story and gets a lot of it right is even better. I got to say, it's one of Ben Affleck. He's directed a few movies. The Town was very good as well. But this was really good. This is one of those movies that the entire family can watch on a weekend and come away with going, wow, I learned something, and it's entertaining, and it's exciting. And I thought all the acting across the board was great. I don't want to get into spoilers, because although this movie did make money and it did win a bunch of awards, I talked to a lot of people who have never seen it. So I will stay out of the spoilers, but if you don't know the story, then get into it. And even knowing the outcome, the movie is still exciting from beginning. And to me, that is the best thing that can be said about any of these historical dramas and thrillers that are made. If it's still exciting, even when you know how it turns out, based on history, that's a pretty darn good movie. So high marks for Argo. As a 4K, they didn't upgrade the soundtrack, so it's still a nice uncompressed 5.1, and it was fine. I would have liked an object-based Dolby Atmos. That would have been great. Picture appears to be an upscale. It looked good. The HDR highlights were good. It was stronger looking than the Blu-ray, which I popped in later just to compare a little bit. There's some decent extras on it. All in all, it's a good package if you can find it cheap, and Black Friday sales are on right now. I think you can probably find it for about $10 from normal retailers. By the way, this is the time of year if you're going to ever buy a hard copy of a movie, and I highly recommend that, and you could listen to my other podcast about that. 4Ks right now, $7, $8, $10. Black Friday sales, Amazon, Best Buy, Walmart. Stock up on some of your favorite movies during the holiday season for like $10. You'll have the best quality copy of the movie. A 4K image you can blow up to over 100 inches if you down the road get a projector or a bigger TV. It's still going to look fabulous. I highly recommend. Check it out. Anyway, Argo, very, very good movie, directed by Ben Affleck. Go check it out. It's available everywhere. Scott, ROCKFILE. Thanks for checking out the podcast. My links are below. Have a spectacular day, and thank you for listening.